What's up, Flick Connection? This is Darren, and today I want to tell you about the very real possibility of Quentin Tarantino directing the next Star Trek movie. Now, this past weekend, the internet was literally blowing up with the news that Quentin Tarantino was in talks to direct an original Star Trek movie. And the story goes, he had a meeting with JJ Abrams where he pitched his own idea for a Star Trek movie, and apparently he liked what Tarantino had to say. This project is moving forward at a fairly rapid pace, particularly when compared to the other Star Trek movies. I was skeptical at first that this was just an internet hoax. Apparently it's not. Multiple reputable media sources, particularly Hollywood-related media sources, have confirmed that this is true. On IMDb, you can currently see this as an upcoming project for both Abrams and Tarantino. So something's happening. Of course, there's no title, but they've already had a writers' meeting in which they pulled in some of Hollywood's top writers currently to discuss ideas with Tarantino, as he's not written anything yet, and he's looking for someone to help him pin this story. And right now, they're looking at Mark L. Smith, who most recently wrote the screenplay for The Revenant. So that's additional big news associated with this story. Additionally, it's rumored that one of Tarantino's stipulations is that the movie be rated R. That's not unbelievable because all of his movies have been hard R. I don't see him wanting to do a PG-13 movie. There'd really be no point. Odds are he's got a really interesting idea on where to take the franchise, and it has some legs. That's all it has, though. So this is not necessarily something that will happen. Right now it's just an idea, but it does have some momentum, so that's what makes this story so interesting. Another interesting fact, they just keep piling up with this one, is that Patrick Stewart is rumored to be interested in reprising his role as Captain Jean-Luc Picard if Tarantino moves forward with this project. That would be interesting. I'd be really curious to see what Tarantino does with that. Odds are he wouldn't do what most fans would think. He wouldn't just put him back into the chair and have him be the captain again. Patrick Stewart is much older than he was when he played that character. I'm willing to bet he's going to be something similar to what he was in Logan. Maybe not like a dying old man that's falling apart, but certainly much, much older than his character was on the series. I think it'd probably be something similar to Bruce Dern's character in The Hateful Eight, just in the sense that Bruce Dern used to be in a lot of Westerns when he was younger, and in that movie he played a very, very old, sort of on his way out artifact of another era. I think Tarantino would probably do something somewhat similar with Patrick Stewart, where he's sort of this artifact of a generation, and sort of just there to sort of maybe pass the torch or just be a representative of the old as Tarantino sort of ushers in the new, whatever that might look like. So let's talk about what that might look like. What might a Tarantino Star Trek movie look like? First off, it'd be very different from anything he's ever done before. Additionally, it would require a way bigger budget than anything he's ever done before. To date, his biggest budget was Django Unchained at $100 million, which is nothing to sneeze at, but that's not quite enough to get all of the effects needed to pull off something like a Star Trek movie. For instance, Star Trek Beyond, the last one, cost about $185 million to produce. That doesn't even factor in the marketing budget for a movie like that. It's hard to get budgets like that for rated R movies, particularly art films like Tarantino's work. A good example of this is Blade Runner 2049. It's a very recent example. It cost about as much as the last Star Trek movie, and it did not do well at the box office. It's rated R. You're immediately cutting in half the amount of people that could go see it. That reduces your ticket sales. It's a Tarantino movie. It's probably going to be over 2 hours. That reduces the amount of showings during a day. That cuts down on the amount of ticket sales. All of those factors go into budgeting a movie and how much the studio can afford to spend on it. Another thing, Harvey Weinstein is not going to be funding this project. Why mention Weinstein? He has funded every single Tarantino project since Pulp Fiction. He is not on board. He is not on any board at the moment. So who's going to do it? Obviously, it looks like, J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot are likely involved. So my suspicion is that Tarantino is sort of at a point now where he doesn't know what to do next. He maybe has a really good idea for this movie, but he sort of lost his key producer, his key backer, and he had an idea, went to J.J. Abrams, and now they're rolling with it. So it's very interesting, but you have to be aware of the fact that Tarantino has a history of being very excited about projects and then losing interest and moving on. So there's a lot of things that could happen that could ruin this for us. He might not be able to get the budget he wants. They may pressure him to do things that he doesn't want to do because this is a big franchise, which he hasn't worked with before. So there's a lot of things that could push him away, and there's a lot of things that could prevent this thing from happening financially the way he wants it to. But I would imagine it probably won't feature any of his regulars. I think that'd be way too meta. You'd be way too aware you're watching a Tarantino movie. I think he's going to have to do something very different, and he'd probably be working with a completely different cast than he has in the past. I don't think it'll have the coarse language that you're used to seeing from him, just because it's way in the future, and the language that we use today wouldn't necessarily apply. Not something you've really had to deal with a whole lot in science fiction movies because they tend to be PG-13, but with this being a Tarantino movie and us being used to really, really rough language from him, I see it going in a different direction. Not necessarily squeaky clean, but in a different direction than just a lot of the motherfuckers and stuff that you normally get in a Tarantino movie. I see it being gory, way gorier than most sci-fi movies. I immediately thought of District 9 when I heard he was doing it. Not that he would do it the same way, but if he's going to have laser blasters in a movie, he's going to have them not burn little holes into spacesuits. He's going to have them cause way more bodily harm than modern weaponry could. So I definitely see that in the cards for this movie. I doubt it will be a series or trilogy. I don't see him as being interested in that unless he does another like two-parter type thing like he did with Kill Bill, which that idea alone would be amazing. If they film like two movies together and release them separately, I'd be super down for that. Again, I loved it the first time he did it. I would love to see it in a Star Trek movie he does. I think it will probably be polarizing. I think there'll be a lot of Trekkies that really like what he does with it. I think there will be a lot that hate it, that do not like what he does with the franchise. I think there'll be a lot of Tarantino fans that just absolutely love it, and I think there'll be others that think it's silly and an odd thing for him to be doing. So I definitely think it'll be a polarizing movie, but so much of his work lately has been not just shocking like it used to be, but polarizing, where some people love it and some people hate it. I definitely see that in the cards with him tackling Star Trek. I think if it were to come out, parents are not going to understand. They're going to be used to taking their kids to see movies like this. They're not going to understand that a Tarantino Star Trek movie is not something you take your 9-year-old son to. I think there's going to be a lot of that coverage in the news, but it happens every time one of these movies comes out. It happened with Deadpool. It would definitely happen here. But above all my predictions, I'm predicting he's going to move on. He's either going to get too much studio interference. The marketing teams are going to want to leak plot details, which he hates. He hates digital. He loves shooting in film. I think that could potentially be an issue production-wise. He could get pressured there, which I know he's not going to fall for. I know he's not going to fold on going digital. He's religiously committed to film, and he hates 3D, and I know someone's going to pressure, maybe not Abrams, but someone's going to pressure this to be a 3D movie just for money, because that's more screenings they can squeeze out of it, and he hates that. So I don't see it happening because of those reasons, but with J.J. Abrams in his corner, he's very respectful of other directors. He would be the linchpin. He would be the one that could facilitate things and keep other interest and producers basically off Tarantino's back. So if that happens, we might have a Quentin Tarantino Star Trek movie by 2019, which would be crazy. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Are you excited about this project? Do you think he's nuts for even trying to tackle it? I think he might be a little bit. But thanks for watching, and you will see me next time.